So to kick off this new season, our program today is titled Career Selfie. And we welcome back to the program Dr. Tracey Wilen, prominent U.S. thought leader on the impact of technology on society, work, and careers. Dr. Wilen is a prominent thought leader on the impact of technology on society, work, and careers. She's been a scholar at Stanford University and has held leadership positions at Apple, HP, Cisco, and the Apollo Group. She has authored 11 books. Her newest book is titled Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends, and was released earlier this year. She's appeared on CNN, Fox, and CBS News, in the Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, Forbes, Los Angeles Times, and USA Today. And of course, we have the pleasure of her being our guest here on Resonance 104.4 FM on this side of the Atlantic. She frequently contributes to the Huffington Post, the Examiner, and the Christian Science Monitor, and is on radio shows across the U.S. weekly as an expert guest. She's a global speaker on the impact of technology on work, careers, and women's leadership. She was honored by the San Francisco Business Times as 2012 Most Influential Woman in Bay Area Business. Dr. Wilen is currently on a corporate speaking tour on the topic 21st Century Careers and can be reached at traceywilen.com and on Twitter at Tracey Wilen. And of course on Facebook, Dr. Tracey Wilen. So Dr. Wilen, welcome back to the workplace here on Resonance 104.4 FM.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. So before the summer, you gave us some advice on how to work and play while on vacation. And you practice what you preach. So while you were on your vacation in Malta, you continued your corporate speaking tour, 21st Century Careers. Bring us up to speed on that event.
Oh, I did. You have a really good memory. That's right. So I started the summer off by working on tour in Malta. And then I moved on to the U.S., did Utah, Colorado, New York, Alabama, New Mexico, and then I ended up at the end of August back overseas in Mauritius.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very exciting speaking tour, and I had a lot of fun. It was hard work, but we're back now in the U.S., and we're continuing the journey. Next week I'll be on the East Coast, visiting some of the locations there. So it should be a good year.
Congratulations. Any hopes for a UK speaking tour?
You know, I'm always hoping because I love coming to the UK. So I think I have to make better connections there to get over there.
All right. Start with Resonance 104.4 FM. All right, so now it's on to today's topic, career selfie. Tell us about the key emerging trends we should be aware of to keep up in the digital world.
You know, I thought of career selfie because so many people are just taking photos of themselves. It's very contemplative in a way, you know, looking inside yourself and photographing it. And I said, I wonder if people take the same time to actually reflect on their own careers and just take a picture of it and look at where they are in the workplace or where they are in their lives and maybe contemplate a little more. So I came out with 10 work trends that are happening today that people may not be aware of and that they should start to tap into a little bit, you know, to do better, as your show says, you know, in the workplace and improve.
That's all right. So take it away. The first trend you've identified is that contribution is key. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, and I think a lot of us have been raised through the workforce as being a loyal worker. You know, it's very important that you show up on time, you do your tasks, and the company appreciates the loyalty. But that is being shifted and replaced somewhat by the need for a more entrepreneurial employee. And that's someone who at all levels of the firm can add value, grow the business, and be more innovative. It's almost like putting on the CEO hat in your job every day. So, you know, taking ownership of that job, taking ownership of your career.
All right. And then you go on to say that A player is now a T person. What is this, all this stuff with letters?
Yes. So the A player is just, a term that people use for the superstar kind of player or somebody who is, you know, very diligent. But a T person actually means transdisciplinarity. And think of it as a T, someone who has depth and breadth, and then also an overlay of technology. So where we went through this phase in the workforce where we really liked people who had general skills, because then we could move people to any part of the firm. And then we went through another wave where we wanted specialists. You were a specialist in IT or a specialist in marketing or a specialist in HR. And now what we're finding is you actually need to have it all. You need to have both generalist qualities so I can move you around a firm, but I also need you to have the specialty areas so that you can be, really in a better position to be promoted. Promoting a specialist just doesn't make sense anymore. We need to have someone who has more experience and more skills throughout the firm. And the T is the technology. It's very difficult to really approach any job today without seeing how much technology is seeped into our lives. In fact, over 70% of the jobs by 2020 will have a technology component. So I think it's important for all of us to look at our jobs and see what kind of technology is in my world and how can I make sure that I'm familiar with it or using it in some way.
It all sounds a bit overwhelming, but when I hear this description of the T personality now, the person with depth and breadth and an overlay of technology, it made me immediately think of, remember the saying from long ago about jack of all trades and master of none. How do you reconcile this new phenomenon with that on the one hand, the jack of all trades proverb, and those who would tell us, you have to find your niche? I don't know how you square those three.
Yes, no, and I think that's a really good question. So let me give you an example, because I was with a hotel group last week, and they hit a wall actually with their strategy, because they had a lot of people in the hotel industry, in the firm, who were generalists. They understood the hotel business, the customers, how to market to them, but they didn't really understand some of the new technologies. Then they had another department where they had people in IT who really understood the technology. Online reservations, some of the new apps, some of the new lighting technologies in the room. But they didn't have anyone who could put it all together. And they said, you know what, we actually need someone who has the experience of understanding the hotel industry, but who is also very fluent in the technology so that we know we can make the right choices and develop a strategy. And what, in essence, they're looking for is a T person, someone who has both the skills plus the technology. So how do you get those skills? Well, today, companies are much more open to lateral moves. If you stay in one job forever, you really can't get that breadth and depth. So being able to rotate around a firm. Many people pick up extra projects, join cross-functional teams, or special initiatives that the company might need to group people to take on, so that you can actually continue to develop your skills while working.
All right. Okay, so we're moving on to point 3, which is making your manager look good is replaced with how your strong personal brand makes the firm's brand look good.
Yes, and I think that's an important point, because in the past, employees were basically measured on how good they made their manager look to their own bosses. And it's pretty non-efficient if you think about it, and quite a narrow approach to management, because it's really not expanding the business. So today we're seeing a shift where leaders realize that the employees are the face of the firm, business, whether you're in sales, marketing, customer service. So let me just go back to that hotel example. When you walk into a hotel, the first person you meet is probably not the manager. You probably meet the bellboy or bellgirl, the front desk, the concierge, even someone in the restaurant. So those are the people who are actually representing the hotel's brand to you. If they have a positive image, you're going to have a positive image of the hotel or the manager of the hotel. But it's not them making their manager look good. It's actually becoming the face of the firm. And I think that's a big shift today. And executives are realizing, yes, my employees touch customers, clients, and vendors. And it's really important they have strong, positive brands.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that hotel example, because I always remember about nearly 9 years ago, I walked into Le Méridien in India, and the way the doorman opened the door for me that really made such an impression on me. I felt like it was the only hotel, the only door to the only hotel in the whole world that he opened only just for me. The way he did it, and it left such a strong impression. So that's a really good point. All right, so now let's go on to point number 4. The all-star individual who can catch and dive to save the firm's business has evolved to the all-star team leader who can create team and customer success to increase the firm's business. So, in other words, no single stars anymore. It's a star is someone who can make everyone stars.
Yes, and I think that is a good point because today it's all about teams. In the past, and I remember many of us were rewarded on being an individual contributor, the high performer. And in fact, we used to give out awards for people who stood out, and they got a special bonus, or we used to call them spot awards because we did a single heroic act. And today, it's too complex, right? The world is just too complex for one person to do it all, and if that person goes away, well, who's going to continue the work? So today, firms are much more savvier. They realize that you need this all-star team. Actually, they call it now a leader, someone who can actually take your B players and turn the entire team into A players. Someone who can really show that they can lead and bring a team together and get them to a successful point. And so I think it's important that people understand that shift has happened. It may even be happening in the firm that you're working for. And that's why I think this is important, is people sometimes stay in their jobs for a long time, and they wonder why people around them are getting promoted who might be younger than them or newer in the firm, and it's because the working world is actually shifting, and it's important that you keep on top of that.
It's so true. And so that moves us quite nicely into the 5th point, which is that the firm is not your family, it is your team, so that how we achieve together the goals so that everyone in the firm benefits. Yes?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, I remember my parents, they were in one firm forever. It was really their family. They would go to work, they would get trained, they would get moved around the firm, and a lot of their friends and family, really worked in the firm, and in fact, many got married, or found a spouse or partner in the firm. And it's different today, and in fact, job velocity is really increasing. I mean, many of us outlive the firms. Management, moves on. You have downturns. You have a lot of shifts. And so staying in one firm isn't a reality, and also viewing that firm as a family isn't really realistic anymore. They're more of your team players. You're making a contribution to the firm, and they value you for making a contribution, and it's a two-way street. So I think that's important to bring a different attitude into the workplace, is that you're not taking care of me. We both are here because we're interested in the products or services of the firm. We're interested in, moving ahead. And I think that's another major shift that's happened.
Alrighty, so we're just about halfway through the workplace here on Resonance 104.4 FM, where we're discussing Career Selfie, who's telling us about the 10 trends in the workplace. Dr. Wilen, so point number 6, the tap on the shoulder is over. You sort of gave us an indication of that it's no longer about, longevity at a firm and so on. It's about how you can contribute to the team. But now let's move on to how culture can kill you. This notion of how culture in firms has changed.
Yes, when you think about it, in the past, firms were pretty much the same. If you joined one firm, you could join another firm because it was sort of a vanilla culture. But today, cultures vary quite a bit. I mean, I'll just give you a quick example for myself. I worked in Silicon Valley and assumed that all the firms' cultures were similar. And I was at one firm, and a friend of mine was at another firm and convinced me to apply for a job in the new firm. I interviewed with maybe 3 people and said, okay, this looks good, and I joined the firm. In the first week, I realized it was a bad fit for me. And here's what the difference was. The firm that I was working for was very creative. It was very assertive. People were very expected to really project their ideas and contribute. The new firm was very process-oriented. It was very quiet. It was very analytic. and you were not encouraged to be creative. You were expected to be silent. And I couldn't believe that the cultures were that different between the two firms. So I had to bide my time and think about more intuitively of making sure that the next firm, because I knew that I wanted to make another move, would be a better fit. And so that's what I encourage people to just don't jump into a firm, with your eyes closed, but start to evaluate firms as aggressively as they evaluate you. And start to try to figure out how to get to know people who work there, read the internet comments, go to some of the websites that critique firms, employment, go to the websites, understand the mission and values of the firms before you join them.
All right. And social media has a very important part to play in this. If now it's not only that employers can, check you out on Twitter and Facebook and so on, but, if you have CEOs of companies and so on, or, anyone within companies, you can also check out their profiles and see, little comments they might make. And, if that really connects with who you are as a person and if you think you'd be a good fit around such a person. So that's a really good point. And another sort of connecting point to that is point number 8, which is finding your passion is replaced by personal exploration. Tell us a bit more.
Well, I wasn't one of those people, and I have colleagues, who maybe knew early stages they were going to be a medical doctor or they're going to be an entrepreneur. But I think I'm like most people. You have to find and explore what you like to do, and then also what you do well. And I think if you can combine those two things, then you can start to perhaps find that passion that people say, what's your passion? And I kind of look at that and say, well, I think what you really need to do is explore and experience a lot of things so that you can sort of drive your own direction, your own GPS, so to speak, and develop your passion. And the reason is that the world is much different today than in the past. There are over 30% more jobs today than when I graduated. And due to technology, I would say that will probably accelerate in much faster time frame. So there's going to be a lot more options for people. So take your time, experiment, develop your skills, make a couple of stops within your firm, try some projects and groups outside your firm so that you can really start to see what are you good at and what do you like to do and put it both together.
I think that is a really crucial point about, the myriad opportunities available. It sort of creates a sort of paralysis for some people. Now they just don't know what to do. So you've raised a very good point about not only exploring, I think, but you raised this question in what you presented to me before the show about, if you had an unlimited amount of money, where and when would you spend your time, 48 hours? Because that really helps you to drill down to the essence of it. So that's a really key point that can help people. So let's move on now to number 9, which is be a marketable employee. What works for you and your firm? This is a question you have to ask yourself.
Yes, and I think there's two sides to that point there. One is firms today are starting to realize that if they develop marketable employees who are happy with the firm, they may stay, or they may need to grow, and they may leave the firm, and they will bring back business to the firm. And I think the consulting firms are right on top of this, and also the technology firms. They realize that people need self-growth and will leave, but they will bring back business. The second side of it is that firms themselves have become much more complex and evolved. And so if you're working in a firm, you can actually make yourself a marketable employee. So let me just give you an example. I have a colleague who's a director of operations. He intuitively knows how to pull together a team, develop the process, and lead the team to success. It really doesn't matter what department he is in the firm. He has that unique skill. In fact, he could go to a different firm and do the same thing. So he is actually what you call like kind of corporate middle class. They're very good at operations of a firm. That's a marketable skill. But then I have a colleague, and she is more transformational. She's excellent with technology, digital marketing. Her skill is that she can actually market herself for shorter types of projects inside the firm, maybe at a different firm. She's much more comfortable with independence and unstructured lifestyle, and she has a special skill. So she's marketable as an employee inside the firm because if they ever need a digital marketing initiative, she can move there, or she's in high demand outside the firm because she really hones those skills. So I think it's important for employees to actually look at yourself and say, what is my brand? What am I good at? Where in the firm do I fit in?
All right. So, and then firms and jobs. Oh, then there's a third person. You have like the middle manager one, the marketable one, and then you mention a transformational employee. That's someone, do you think it's someone who can be good in the firm as well as outside the firm? Is that it?
Right. The transformational employee is like my marketing person.
Okay.
Third person is someone who sets their sights on saying, okay, I do want to join a single firm. I'm a lifer, and there's far and few of these people, but they still exist. They say, okay, I want to join this firm, and I'm going to move wherever the firm takes me. I'm going to take on the challenges that the firm presents to me because I have a pact with that firm that I will become a senior leader. And that's a very different type of person who just makes the decision and the investment in the firm, and the firm makes the investment in them.
All right. So in very briefly, in like about a minute, if you can tell us the final point, which is that firms and jobs come and go, but people last.
Yes. And in a nutshell, firms will come and go. Your managers will come and go. But at the end of the day, 75 to 85% of all jobs are secured through networking. And people keep up with each other. People find other people jobs. So no matter if you're in a traditional world or a digital world, keep up your networks because that's the best liaison for a job internally or externally.
All right, great. Dr. Wilen, thanks so much for being with us here again on The Workplace on Resonance 104.4 FM. As usual, it was a pleasure having you and learning the insights to keep up to date in career-wise in the digital age.
Thank you.
All right. Make sure to visit TraceyWilen.com to see all the ways that you can connect with Dr.